Hello and welcome to That Was a Game. Today we're looking at James Bond 007 for the original Game Boy, a video game that makes you ask, really? That was a game? James Bond 007 was released in early 1998 for the original Game Boy. At this time, James Bond mania was in full swing. Goldeneye for the Nintendo 64 had released in mid-97 to much success, and Pierce Brosnan's second James Bond film, Tomorrow Never Dies, had just hit theaters. Now, this is 9 months before Pokemon hit the United States and revived the handheld. Before Pokemon, Game Boy was a wasteland. James Bond 007 has a big holographic sticker on the box that says New Release, as if to say, no, this isn't some game from 1991 that we just reprinted, it's brand new. The only thing I can imagine is that Goldeneye was a surprise hit in mid-97 and a Game Boy game was fast-tracked. And really, that was enough for me. I was a huge James Bond fan at the time and I was champing at the bit for some Bond on the go. Now remember, this is 1998. The Game Boy version wasn't going to be a first-person shooter, but instead of making a 2D platformer, the default format for a licensed adaptation in that era, the developers opted for a top-down action game. Now before it came out, I got it in my head that this was James Bond by way of Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Now this isn't an accurate comparison or even a fair one. Of course it's not that. It's a top-down, single-screen action game with weapon swapping, which I guess at the time I'd only seen in Zelda or Zelda-esque games. I hadn't played the original NES Metal Gear, and this was still almost a year before the first Metal Gear Solid. Because the Nintendo 64 Goldeneye messed with, at the time, traditional first-person shooter mechanics by adding in sub-objectives beyond kill everything and get to the end of the level, and it added stealth mechanics, one might be inclined to think that reskinning Metal Gear with James Bond would be maybe a good way to go with the underpowered but still great Game Boy. And if this had been a year or two after Metal Gear Solid, maybe it would have. Maybe it should have. Most James Bond games are first-person shooters attempting to recapture the magic of Goldeneye when maybe they should have been looking to Metal Gear for inspiration. Both series feature one-man armies infiltrating enemy bases with increasingly outlandish villains. It could have worked. But back to James Bond 007. What is it? It's a top-down light action game sort of in the vein of Zelda. Bond walks around, he navigates mazes, he talks to people, he gathers items, and he kills bad guys. Game Boy isn't really strong enough to handle complex combat. There may be 3 bad guys on screen, but maybe only 1 bad guy moves at a time. Complex is pretty simplistic, just hold the block button to stun the enemy, then hit them till they die. Now what I will say about James Bond 007 is that it attempts to explore more of the British Super Spies IP than just shooting bad guys, racing fast cars, and thwarting diabolical plots. Bond does a little bit of sleuthing. He has to chat with NPC characters to find information. The second level has absolutely no enemies. Bond just gets to walk around MI6. Bond can flirt with Moneypenny, and as much as the 8-bit Game Boy will allow. The only objectives are to get a mission from M, and M in this game is a bald man resembling Bernard Lee's M, even though Judi Dench had played the character in 2 movies up to this point, and in Goldeneye. And then you can also get some gadgets from Q. Yeah, there's a Q segment that's completely player-controlled. No cutscenes. Bond can antagonize Q, and he can trigger a couch to eat one of Q's assistants. There's also a casino level. The games aren't much more than Red Dog, which is a variation of High-Low that I've never heard of, Blackjack, and Baccarat, which I don't really understand. But to progress, Bond has to play casino games, which is pretty par for the course as far as a Bond movie goes, but certainly not something I've seen in a Bond video game. So, as a curiosity, James Bond 007 is very interesting. It uses the James Bond license in a way that few James Bond games have, but as a game, it's really dull. Combat's not fun. Fetch quests are simplistic. It can be found for less than $5 online, but even then, I wouldn't say it's very fun. It's not bad. It's not good though. It's just a game.